Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me, the happiest he is on any given show, on any given podcast, each and every week, it's Ryan Schumpert of Rocky Top Insider. He's already smiling. He's already laughing. It's something about the Chase Thomas podcast that gets Ryan in a happier mood, as the listeners pointed out on last week's show. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. Trying to, the NFL season's already over for me. One game in, it's over. Yeah. Can't wait to declare it back. It's the Titans do something every year that it's been about once a year the last 3 years, where there's a game, if they just ran the ball every play in the second half, they would win. But they don't do it, and their quarterback play is so bad that it lets down the defense. As Juwan Jennings, 3rd and Juwan, converts on 3rd and 18 for the 49ers. A little look into Monday Night Football. Shout out Juwan.
There you go. Also here, who got to watch his quarterback do nothing but great things on Sunday. Very normal, very good, and everything's great. He's got his franchise quarterback, and all smooth sailing, as every Bears fan has experienced with every new quarterback over Ethan Stone of Saturday Down South's entire lifetime. Ethan, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great. That was probably the most chaotic win I've experienced in a very long time with the Bears, and that's saying something. They have mastered Iowa football, the Chicago Bears have. But
there's a lot of crossover, right? A lot of people graduate from Iowa and then move to Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, Tory Taylor, just drafted him, so he's got to take Iowa with him, I guess. I don't know.
There you go.
But yeah, underwhelming performance from Williams, but I think he'll bounce back. I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, you know who won't bounce back? The Atlanta Falcons, because they go to Philadelphia on Monday Night Football and then get the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football the week after. And we know the history of starting 0-2 or 0-3 in your playoff odds. So everything's great. Everything's great for the Atlanta Falcons. I had a really fun time watching the game about on Sunday afternoon. But, a tradition unlike any other. Why do I do this to myself with the Atlanta Falcons every single season? But, we have the Vols, as Ryan pointed out, because the Tennessee Volunteers football team is really good. Not as good. Like Jack Foster mentioned to me in a text where he was more dubious coming out of the game on Saturday, where he feels like it's a lot of fool's gold with the Tennessee Volunteers. He thinks more 8-4. 7-5 to this point more than anything, and I wish he was here on the podcast to kind of expound on that a little bit, because I'm thinking more 10-2 and 11-1 type of deal. But Jack, I don't know what he was watching on Saturday, and unfortunately we won't hear from Jack tonight to clarify his pessimistic viewpoints about where Tennessee is headed after a great start to the season. Top 10 scoring offense, top 10 scoring defense through 2 weeks. So I don't know what Jack is saying, but I guess we'll hear from Jack and some clarification on that and hopefully next week's show. But until then, he's at Jack Foster Media if you want to reach out about the cynicism from Jack Foster of their early start for the 2024 Volunteers football season.
This is nasty business from Chase 9-3, Thomas. Absolutely nasty business.
I don't know what you're talking about. But you know what I do know is that Tennessee blew out NC State 51-10 in Charlotte on Saturday night. Ryan Schumpert, you were in the building. This was just. I thought coming in my preview, I think I had 49-20. I thought NC State would score a little bit more. Oh, he's got the Duke's Mayo Classic take home. Did they give that out? Did you have to buy that? What was that?
No, they were giving it to. I could have taken 6 of those things if I wanted to.
What are you gonna do with that much mayo?
I don't know.
Do you like mayo is also just a garbage condiment. Like no one ever needs mayo.
Get out of here.
Mayo is a garbage condiment. It's
Mayo's
never necessary.
Good.
No,
it's a weird dichotomy. I'm certainly no mayo man, Broadway boy Will Levis, but Mayo, like if a little bit of mayo is good. It enhances the sandwich. It's great. Now I will say, to the mayo haters' point, a lot of mayo, absolutely horrendous. Destroys the sandwich. Just disgusting.
And I'm not a mayo guy. Like I remember I almost was out on Zach sauce when I learned that there is some sort of mayo in Zach sauce, where it was so repulsive and I felt so betrayed that they mask the sauce with the different color to never make you assume that it has any form of mayonnaise. You can't even say mayonnaise without just kind of with a scowl. I also think of the fantastic program Arrested Development and the May and Egg with Anne in her first meeting with Michael Bluth in season 1 of Arrested Development. So maybe that was something that kind of shaped my viewpoint on mayonnaise back in the day. But yeah, highly encourage folks to go watch back that scene if you'd like to really laugh and you're having a tough day. Just watch George Michael describe Anne and her May and Egg. But we move forward in that natural transition, because when a lot of people are thinking about and talking about Arrested Development, they're also talking about the Tennessee Volunteers football team. So what we saw on Saturday night was one of the, I think, more dominant, just comfortable Tennessee wins that I think we've been kind of dying for. There was, I think, some hesitation maybe coming in of like, could this be Pitt from 2 years ago? Tennessee did have struggles with Pitt with a home loss the first year, and then needing overtime to win. The second time, it's like, okay, this NC State team is better than that Pitt team 2 years ago. There is some questions, but the line kept getting bigger. It was up to like, I think 10 or whatever by kickoff, but it was by and large just a full-on beatdown from the Will Brooks pick on. Ryan Schumpert, your biggest takeaway being in the building and seeing what happened play out?
I think it was just Tennessee's defense as a whole, just how dominant it was. I mean, absolute, like, almost like they're playing an FCS team from at least a defense standpoint. Obviously, NC State's defense put up a lot more resistance against Tennessee's offense, but Tennessee just I mean, you could even tell the first drive of the game. Nice little drive for NC State. They get some third downs. They were completely overmatched up front. I think their first 4 design run plays in the game went for -10 yards. That you could tell from the jump they were going to have no chance to run it against Tennessee. And Tennessee's defense line, which has been a big talking point all offseason, and they've said it. Tim Banks said it. We think this can be the best defense line in the country. They looked like someone that could make that argument very legitimately. So that, and then I liked what the linebackers did, and there was more testing in the back end than there was against Chattanooga, and I came away, I guess, with a takeaway or a conclusion that Tennessee secondary is not going to be great. It's not going to be a strength of the team. I don't think it's going to be something that holds them back from being good enough to make the playoffs. Like, if Tennessee doesn't make the playoffs, I think won't be solely because it's just like you can't make the playoffs with that type of secondary. I think they have enough talent. Tremont McCoy was really impressive. I think they held up well enough on the back end that most games, just how much better I think they're going to be than teams on the line of scrimmage. The defense is still going to be able to be really, really solid and definitively the best defense Josh Heupel's had at Tennessee.
Yeah, no, I think the corner's really good. Jamad had a great 4th down stop. I think as a whole, the team just tackles really well. I think by and large, it was a little bit nerve-wracking in the first drive. Ethan with NC State really driving down the field. Casey Concepcion was involved a lot. Boo Carter got put on an island kind of, and he was behind. And it's hard to know what kind of coverage and where, if Boo was actually supposed to be there and trail him and kind of be up. But Boo was actually, I think, the lowest graded ball player in the secondary in coverage. Him and Christian Harrison, I think, were in the bottom 2 for coverage snaps, according to PFF this week. But to Ryan's point, Ethan, like, I don't think this is kind of the best case scenario for Vol fans to see what this defense can be in terms of the ceiling, which is, look, if this front 7, and we should mention Keenan Pili, Jeremiah Thielander, and Arian Carter, and Jalen Smith, who played well because
he played a lot of snaps.
Able to go. So now I'm kind of curious what that rotation looks like. Does Jalen Smith move ahead of Caleb Perry? Like, I don't know how that looks, but that competition, I think, is only going to increase over the next couple of weeks, Ethan. But you look at it, okay, if this front seven is going to be able to do this against good top 25 teams most weeks, then I just don't think the secondary stuff that has come up in years past is going to come up very often. Maybe a game or two, maybe Alabama, but Alabama's got a rough front offensive line. We saw that on Saturday. Kentucky, obviously, an abysmal offensive line. Ooh. Oklahoma, I don't think that offensive line's great. So you just look at the list of who Tennessee should have trouble with in terms of getting pressure, and I think it just comes down to Georgia. I just look at this schedule and I'm like, I think Tennessee's front seven is going to have their way with just about everybody to put the secondary in a good spot to be okay.
Yeah, I think everyone had that little internal conversation with themselves last night. And I mean, I think Alabama's offensive line is going to get better. They were missing some people against USF. I think they were missing 2 or 3 people. Proctor was out, if I'm not mistaken. I think Elijah Pritchett was there. I think Alabama could still have a good offensive line. But, I mean, I did the same exercise. I went through and it's like, man, I understand that I came into this saying that I think NC State's line of scrimmage in general was awful. And I thought Tennessee was going to dominate, and they still surprised me. It was that good. They had 13 tackles for loss, and it was spread out among like 16 players. Yep. I mean, it's just absolutely – everybody was winning their assignment. Everybody was winning. They were demolishing them. It wasn't really just I would piggyback on what Ryan said. The defensive line was insanely impressive. I mean, the run game, the offensive line, Cooper Mays especially, they were so impressive. I mean, Tennessee dominated the offensive line to the definition of how you're supposed to do it against NC State. And I don't care if they got pushed around by Western Carolina. That's impressive. That's really impressive. So I mean, getting back to what I was saying earlier, I did that same thing. And I think Georgia, I think Alabama, maybe jury's still out on whether or not. I think that this defensive line should be able to disrupt them to the same extent that they did in this one. But I mean, you got to feel great about Tennessee moving forward. The game's played in the trenches, and they look fantastic. One of the trenches, and they look fantastic.
And they're just healthy. I think we can't just discount how much health is going to matter for any of these teams to make a deep run. And you're seeing, like we talked about, like Ethan, with the health in the offensive line for Alabama. Tennessee is real, knock on wood, they are really healthy in a lot of key spots. And if they remain relatively healthy throughout the year, this is just looks like a college football playoff team. And I think you see them move into the top 10, obviously, this week in both the AP and the coaches poll. I think Ole Miss and Tennessee I think they look better than Alabama and Mizzou at this point. And I think if you were to say like the top 4 in the SEC, I think Georgia and Texas are in their own tier right now. And then I think tier 2 is Ole Miss and Tennessee in their own tier. And then I think you get behind them, it's like Mizzou and Alabama, and I'm sure that's going to annoy some Alabama fans, but Alex Golesh had you on the ropes. Like, that final score was not indicative to how that game was going at all. It got away from in the last few drives from Alabama, but Golesh and the Bulls were knocking on the door midway through the fourth quarter there and had an opportunity to win that game outright. And Golesh, man, doesn't matter where he's at, Tennessee, South Florida, he knows what he's doing against the Crimson Tide. That much is sure for the former Vols OC. Switching gears here a little bit, Ethan, the stock report trending up, down. Who do you have trending up for the Vols football team this week, and who do you have trending down this week?
Trending up, I've already said offensive line, so I'll stick away from that. I'll say Max Kitselman. I didn't really even heard of the dude until then.
I don't think a lot of Vol fans had.
You know what? I'm going to go back on that. Just the tight end room in general. I mean, every one of them has caught a touchdown pass, if I'm not mistaken. I think Ethan Davis had one against Chattanooga. Holden Stace, I believe, had one. Was it Chattanooga or was this last game?
Well, he had one here. I don't know if he had one against. Yeah, he had one here.
Yeah, so I mean, just the tight ends, their use in general. That's been not exactly like surprising is the word I'd use. It wasn't on my radar at all. I just didn't, because it hasn't really been.
I mean, they were using 12 personnel a bunch on Saturday. This is a totally different deal for Tennessee.
It was. They can there's so many different ways to score with the point of the offensive line that I made a little bit ago. You got Dylan Sampson, who could very well be the best running back in the SEC right now, running behind who could very well be one of the best centers in the SEC. Nigo has been heralded by some as a top 5 in the SEC. Even right now,
not Jack Foster.
there's just so many ways that they can win. If they're getting the tight ends incorporated into it too, that's going to be dangerous.
Yeah. Well, who do you have trending down? So you have tight ends up. Whose stock was down after this week?
That's a tough question, man.
Who would you
Gordon,
say?
Maybe because he didn't have a catch, but like that doesn't.
I
mean
would say the receivers. It's fair to say stock.
I think
down.
that's a game. That's who you're gonna. That's who you have to say if you're gonna say somebody. I think this was just a matchup thing. I think it was the 3-3-5. I think we'll see Tennessee run more 12 personnel than they have in the past, which is next to 0. But it's not going to be 46%. Like I think this was purely.
Was that the
Josh
number?
Heupel. Yes.
Wow.
Josh Heupel and Joey Halsley seeing a team that runs a 3-3-5 that can present some issues for a team that spreads it out like they do. And they said, I think we can just line it up and out physical them and run right at them. And that's exactly what they did. I thought that was, from a offensive coordinator, both game plan and calling the game standpoint, the best game Josh Heupel's had at Tennessee. He was, I mean, it was an absolute tear. It was a masterclass from starting from the game plan and just, I mean, look at 3 of Tennessee's 5 offensive touchdowns on that game. Miles Kitselman, no one around him. Holden Stays, no one around him. Nico Iamaleava, 31 yards untouched. I mean, it was, I thought, just phenomenal.
Yeah, I guess the other thing I would throw out with the receivers is just, I think I just have it circled the Georgia game, right? Like I think the receivers are going to have, the receivers are going to be a good year. Whether it's Dante, I think Chris Brazzell, I mean, he was really good in that opening drive. Squirrel caught some big balls in this game. He was able to pop a little bit on the outside and broke open in that Jalen Hyatt route. You know what I mean? Like it's something we hadn't seen last year really, and you kind of forget about it. But Squirrel down the sideline where he is able to get around. It's like that deep pick that Tennessee runs, and it's just I don't know how you guard that with. Yeah, I just don't know how you guard that with the speed that Tennessee has on the perimeter. But it was a great game for him in this one. But I think you could probably say, and again, we're nitpicking here because Tennessee dominated in all 3 phases of this game. I think it's still the star position. I still think, Boo is still, Boo is just going to be up and down. Like in our group chat, we talk about it. It's like Boo passes the eye test when you watch him on the screen. Like he's comfortable with the line of scrimmage. He flies all over the place. Like Boo is going to be a future star at Tennessee, but I think he's going to be up and down. I think he's going to get lost in coverage sometimes. I think he's just going to make true freshman mistakes. And Christian Harrison, I don't think is as good as Jordan Thomas would have been in that spot. So I think you're going to miss Jordan Thomas for the majority of this season. And I just think it's a weak spot. Like, I don't think it's the end all be all. I don't think it's going to cost Tennessee big time, but there is a reason those two were the lowest graded Vols in coverage. So look, I'm not saying that's anything that hit the panic meter. They can improve, but I do think playing a true freshman like Boo, who I do think outsnapped Harrison in this game, this many snaps, it's going to be a learning curve, and the games are going to get harder, and they're going to play better competition. So I think that's just one to watch a little bit. Is just okay. Boo's two things can be true. Boo and Christian Harrison will be fine. Tennessee's defense isn't going to take a huge hit there, but it is going to be a real learning curve for him week to week, where he's going to have some unbelievable moments, and then I think he's going to have some rough moments in coverage a little bit. So switching gears here a little bit, did you have anything else to add on the stock up and down, Ryan Schumpert?
Yeah, I would say I agree with that. Not that necessarily the stock is down, because I wasn't feeling like super great about them before, but that was definitely a weak point. And I'll just add a fun fact in there. Holden Stays, 5 career touchdowns, 3 of them against North Carolina State.
Ooh.
Doesn't like them.
Yep. 2 last year against them at Notre Dame.
Wow.
And also, I just think we should do like the post redo, because the Dane Davis downfield penalty was a joke, and we lost the Miles Kitselman just bomb from Nico in that one. Kitselman, I think, was actually the highest graded Vol of everybody. Kitselman's a dude. Like, what an all-time great find. Like, if you're Tennessee, you were flexing in the portal where you're like, no, who has it better than us? Like, we could just go in and be like, Miles Kitselman, I think he's going to be a dude if we put him in our system. Miles Kitselman is a dude.
Catches. 2 catches in 2 years at Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, he's an upgrade over McCallum Castles. Like, McCallum Castles, who was solid, Kitselman has more upside. Kitselman is more comfortable in space. I mean, he's more he's physical at the line like McCallum is. Good run blocker. I think he has better hands and he's just better. I think he's a better pass catcher and I like McCallum, but I think Kitselman's better.
Pass catcher. He's a better blocker, so he might be a more all-around better player. I'm not ready to go to the standpoint of he's better. I mean, I thought McCallum Castles was really good as a receiving tight end. Yeah. I haven't seen enough from Kitselman to make me say that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but of the most passes he caught, there was no one in the vicinity.
The most telling stat from Vols NC State was what, Ryan Schumpert?
Oh man, there's a lot you can go to. I mean, we'll just stick to the basics. 460 to 143. That's how many yards the two teams gained. Like you think, oh wow, 51 to 10. Maybe this wasn't as bad as it looked. Especially if you're watching it for a lot of the first half and you're like, oh, this game was pretty close. This is probably not a very accurate representation of how that game went down. Nope. 460 to 143. I mean, NC State had a lot of hype around their offense entering the season, and their offensive line is so bad, I think it's going to keep them from being great there. But Tennessee, like I said earlier, they made them look like an FCS offense the way they just absolutely manhandled them up front.
I also Grayson McCall is one of those guys who I think was really good in the Jamie Chadwell system, and then he's out of it. And I don't know, man. Tennessee pressure was on, and Nico. It wasn't like Nico wasn't getting pressure. I mean, Lance Hurd struggled in this game for Tennessee in pass pro, and I think Nico handled it so much better than Grayson in this game, because it wasn't like Nico was just sitting back and had all the time in the world to throw and make decisions. I mean, he showcased what he could do with his legs again. He was he had the first pick was his fault, but he also made that throw 2 weeks prior or a week prior. And this one it didn't happen, but that's going to happen sometimes. And he didn't, and in the Hendon Hooker way, he just bounces back. And I think he learns from it immediately, lets it go, and just moves forward and doesn't dwell on it. And then, I mean, the pick six was just crazy bad luck, getting hit as he threw. And then, but all-time great moment from DeSean Bishop, back-to-back weeks, Nathan Leacock and DeSean Bishop. Yep. I mean, Leacock was able to catch the Mox player from a week ago, but Bishop was unbelievably close. And
I thought he was going to pull on Emmanuel Mosley. I really did. I was like, he's gonna smack the ball out of there. I thought he was going to find him.
Speaking of, you weren't here last week for the opening, Ethan. Karn's a legend, Ethan Stone, getting to see DeSean Bishop out here through 2 weeks, averaging 4.2 yards per carry, good in pass pro. Cam Seldon not able to go. DeSean Bishop he's just so I don't feel like he's ever going to break anything huge. He's going to have like a 75-yard touchdown run for Tennessee, but I always think he's going to get 4 to 5 yards. I just think DeSean Bishop's going to find a way to get 4 to 5 yards every time he gets handed the ball. It's what do you see with DeSean Bishop through 2 weeks, Ethan?
Especially against NC State, noting that, I mean, I'm biased against the guy. I watched him for forever. I go to Karns games all the time. Karns, for those who don't know, absolutely terrible at football. I mean, he was their entire offense. All 4 years he was there as a freshman, sophomore, he was their offense. He's so much fun to watch. And I kind of joked with you guys that he's going to be the next big thing. I genuinely trust in him now. When he gets the ball, I'm like, I think it's going to be a good play. I really do. I think he can play at this level. I think he can play at Tennessee. I really do. I'm not sure if he's ever going to be like a feature back guy, but dude, he's fun. He's definitely holding his own out there, and it's cool to see.
He's going to be in the trio backs. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say a lot of Jabari Small in DeSean Bishop. They're not superstars, but the yards that are there, they're going to get them. They're going to run tough. They're just going to be solid.
And you need those guys because guess what? He's not going to be mad about not being the featured tailback, I don't think. I think it's just one of those, you kind of need those guys in between because Peyton Lewis still feels like the feature back in waiting. Cam Seldon obviously has feature back potential too. Dylan Sampson, he keeps it up, he will be in the NFL draft next year. And then that's your three. And I think you want to be able to keep all three happy. And I think if you have this mix in terms of expectations and what they're looking for, it just feels like those three will be really good next year. And just the upside just continues as Tennessee is just able to keep a great stable running backs in the Josh Heupel era. Ethan, call your shot. How does the Kent State game go? 47.5, I think, point line right now against the Golden Flashes. He lost to a team called St. Francis, the Red Flash, I think, on Saturday. which is not great.
Yeah.
Not great.
It's not
so
great.
What do you think happens in this game on Saturday, and who are you most excited to see get some extended work? As this is probably it until UTEP for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, it's funny you bring it up. When I was kind of wondering about this question before we did this, DeSean Bishop was going to be my answer. He was going to be the guy that's like, we're going to see a lot of him in the second half. We'll probably see a lot of Jake Merklinger in this one, honestly, and that's what this game's going to be. I mean, Tennessee's going to have it in hand at the end of the first quarter, and then it's going to be a bunch of second team guys. It's going to be more. It's going to be Merklinger. Hopefully, Maliava's out by the end of halfway through the second. I'm not expecting anything major to happen. Just go into it. Don't get injured. See some good things from Bishop. See some good things from the second team player. Boo Carter, he's one of them. Get his confidence up moving forward. There's so much depth on this team. It's just hard. That NC State game showed you that. There's just so much depth. It's like I'm not really majorly concerned of anything after that. I mean, we're going to be moving into Oklahoma after, and it's going to be a night game, and that's going to be that. That's that'll probably be a dogfight. But next weekend's just it's your cupcake game, and Kent State is. I don't think they're upset worthy. They're not good guys. They're really dreadful.
Oklahoma doesn't have to be a night game if Mike Pence has the courage. Brian Schumpert. Who are you most looking forward to see? I think there's part of me that's like Gaston. I think you kind of want to see what Jake looks like with the twos, and this might be one to me where you maybe Gaston just has had a lot of reps. I just think we know exactly what Gaston is in this offense.
Has he had a lot of reps?
I mean, he's been with Heupel forever. He's just
a lot of practice reps.
Yeah, he's just been.
But he's a hit away from needing them to play.
But that's why I think it's actually more important to keep him healthy and not have something freaky happen in this Kent State game. And I don't know. Part of me thinks that you should just give Jake a lot of time with the twos, maybe some time with the one, just to see what he looks like and how far away he is from helping. Because I think he's going to be obviously QB3 for a while, and he's not going to see the field again if all things go right until UTEP. So I don't know. Part of me thinks that you should give Jake a lot of reps in this game. And I don't even think you should maybe have Nico make it to the half.
Seriously, I'd take him out at the end of the first quarter if you're up by 30. Or
maybe first drive.
Even 21. If you're up 3 touchdowns, more can beat him. Perfectly fine.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that aspect of it, that Merklinger should play a lot because Nico shouldn't play much. I just don't think it should come at the expense of Gaston Moore because, we're at the point here, and Chase, you did the whole thing in the offseason, and it was accurate of Tennessee loses Nico for the season, the year's washed. Mm-hmm. Yes. What if Nico gets a concussion and he's out of game? Tennessee needs to be able to beat Kentucky with Gaston Moore at quarterback. And so I think those game reps are valuable for him, just from a guy that, yes, he's been in the system for a long time, but he hasn't played much in games. To your question overall, I like to see the freshman receivers get some run in this game if they're back and healthy. Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley, and obviously they'll be working with very possibly Merklinger. And then defensively, the guy you kind of mentioned earlier, Jalen Smith, I thought it was pretty telling of where he's at, that they just put him right into the Caleb Perry role with him out, and he played 19 snaps, and then you didn't notice him out there a ton, which is not necessarily the best thing, but also not a bad thing. So I'll go with him, and then Caleb
maybe
Beasley.
Spillman hasn't debuted yet. Maybe we see Spillman in this one.
Yeah, if Spillman's healthy and ready to go, because he wasn't on the official injury report, but he was not dressed out on Saturday. So we'll see what happens with him. And then the one other, I know I'm just kind of rambling, guys, but Caleb Beasley wasn't great against Chattanooga when he played, and I'm sure he'll get a ton of run in this one. So we'll be good to see how he bounces back.
Yeah, because he's sneaky important to get ready. Because there's not a lot of cornerback. We just look at, like we said, health is just so important all across the board. And you're 2 injuries away from Caleb Beasley being your nickel corner. So you just kind of he needs to be ready. I think there's just certain guys Tennessee, Idris Farouk kind of popped for me. I think he might be one of your next future starting safeties. He has that look to me. I like Idris Farouk. I'm buying all the stock on Idris Farouk Island for the safety spot. Maybe next year. I don't know, but I'm in on Idris Farouk. That was something I jotted down in my notes. I'm like, oh, he's gonna be good. I like Idris. But yeah, we'll see. I think Mike Matthews the point there, because we haven't seen him either to this point. What if he pops? Like, what if Mike Matthews just looks really good out of the gate here, and you're like, oh, this is different? Because we've seen that where certain guys, I mean, he is a blue chip 5-star. Does he find a way to work? Because there was talk of like, oh, could he be in the rotation? Like, that was a spring, like he really balled out in the spring, and I don't know, like, could he force it? Because like Tennessee has a lot of options at receiver, but I think just the competition is so much there. And I just wonder with his talent, like, is Mike Matthews push in a way that we haven't seen any freshman receivers to this point? Because like if he has a huge game and he's healthy, I don't know. I from everything I've heard and seen, I think it's going to be hard to keep a healthy Mike Matthews off the field, even with how much veteran talent you have right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd say for sure. I don't know if I'm really buying it. Like, I don't know what's he gonna do against Kent State. It's like, gosh, can't take that guy off to keep that guy off the field. I mean, this is a terrible, horrific team. But yeah, I mean, he can, if he plays really well, he can earn, some snaps and maybe get into rotation a little bit. I'm just skeptical that we're going to see him have a super big role this season.
Yeah. We shall see. Through 2 weeks, Ethan Stone, who is Tennessee's MVP and who is the biggest surprise for Tennessee through 2 weeks for you?
MVP for me is probably Cooper Mays. I've mentioned him a little bit already. I think what the offensive line is doing is insanely underrated. And I mean, if you could give it to two guys, both interior defensive linemen, Omar Norman Lott and Omari Thomas. But the interior of the line on both sides is so impressive. And, that starts with Mays. He won SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week this week, obviously for what he was doing against NC State. They're leading the way for Dylan Sampson, who I said a little bit ago I think is the best running back in the SEC right now. Maybe Jaquindon Jackson might have something to say about that but it's Cooper Mays. He's been very impressive, leading the run game, leading what Tennessee's able to do on offense. Most surprising, I'm trying not to go back to Kitselman. I'm gonna say honestly Pili, just because he hasn't played that much. Just seeing him hit people and just level people is, I mean, it's a religious experience. Him and Arian Carter both are hitting people so hard. It's like,
yeah,
I'd be sent to the hospital for 4 months.
Arian had a big hit in this one. Arian had a huge hit. Yeah. Arian and Edwin Spillman, I think, are the first team all-stars of guys I don't want to see hit me like it with a full steam ahead. Like those two are not.
Keenan Pili on the block on the pick six too.
It was so good.
Seriously.
He's an athlete though. Keenan Pili, like he's an athlete.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I thought he was going to be like a non-factor or anything like that. I guess it's just, he gets injured at the start of last year.
He's been a little bit better than
he's been better than I expected him to be, because seeing him out there against decent competition, I think, is what it is.
Well, also T-Lander feels like he's helped T-Lander too, right? Like T-Lander's good. Like T-Lander, I am fully confident in him taking over that Pili role next year and being totally fine.
Yeah, agree.
Ryan, your MVP and most biggest surprise for Tennessee football through 2 weeks?
Biggest surprise, I think we've talked about Kitselman and Ethan said it. I think that genuinely has to be the biggest surprise. I'll go Will Brooks. He played well outside of the pick six. He was one of Tennessee's highest graded defensive backs, was the highest graded safety according to PFF in that game. Again, time will tell will be the big thing, but he's played well and he's silenced. As I tweeted after pick six, he's silencing a lot of the haters and losers, parentheses me. And then going to MVP, I mean, obviously Nico's it's MVP. It's always quarterback. If you're the most valuable player, it's quarterback. But going away from the obvious answer, I'll say Dylan Sampson, and that just what Ethan said earlier in the podcast, where I'm sure Tennessee could run the ball fine if Dylan Sampson got hurt. Like, it's just Chase, you were all over it in the offseason. Like, this is an offense that's going to create a lot of big holes for running backs. And it's not like I think Tennessee's run game would disappear. But Dylan Sampson went from my expectations entering the season of, okay, this is a really good playmaker who I'm sure will be like completely fine being the main guy and the go-to guy in the running back room, to what Ethan said. I think he's one of the best running backs in the SEC. And he's just been so impressive. And I think he just gives Tennessee a complete extra gear in what it can do in its run game, and just also some of the things they can use them in the pass game as well too.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Seldon not being healthy. I mean, if Dylan Sampson wasn't healthy, we like DeSean Bishop, but I wonder how the play calling would change. Would the staff, they like how they're using DeSean Bishop right now, Ethan, but would the staff give him this same kind of load that they're giving Dylan Sampson? Because they were short. Would they throw Peyton Lewis more into the mix? Would Khalifa Keefe be bigger into the mix? Would they still do a 3? I would be curious what they would do if they got that thin at running back. Would it be a lot more pass happy? But they're able to be pretty even because Dylan Sampson's healthy, and Dylan Sampson's able to carry a crazy load through 2 weeks. I think he does lead all SEC backs in rushing right now through 2 weeks. So, I mean, he's been a feature back. I think almost even more than the load that Jalen Wright was carrying through the first 2 weeks of last year. So I thought Dylan Sampson would be good. I didn't think he'd be able to carry the kind of load that it looks like Tennessee's going to do. I mean, they weren't really rotating at all through the first 2 weeks. Dylan Sampson, he's there. We're so used to seeing, all right, Jalen Wright, okay, here comes Jabari next drive. Okay, here comes Dylan Sampson on this drive, and then we'll rotate all the way back. That's not what they've done through 2 weeks, Ethan.
Yeah, I mean, him beating, I think it was the corner to the sideline, just running right past him. I can't remember how long the touchdown was. It's just ridiculous. He's got crazy speed, and I mean, it's just because he's wearing number 6. But I cannot help thinking of Alvin Kamara. I feel like the similarities are there. Obviously, Kamara is Kamara, and there's still a long way to go there. But I was uber impressed with that guy, man. Dylan Sampson is so much fun.
I love it.
Little quick thing on that. I went and looked at it today. I went through the whole Heupel era to see what's the most carries players have had in games. Because Sampson had 20 on Saturday. Him in the bowl game against Iowa was the only time anyone had 20 last season. Shows how much they rotate. And then there were.
I'm glad I'm not crazy there, because that's something I've jotted down where I'm just this is. I wonder if anyone else finds this so bizarre. Dylan Sampson's out there for his 3rd straight series.
Yes, but I will say, going back and looking at 21 and 22, there were more instances of 20 carries than I thought there'd be. The most of a Heupel player, I would say, guess this. I don't think anybody's going to have any chance to guess it. 26 from Jabari Small in the Music City Bowl in 2021.
Really?
Wow. In a very sneaky one, this tied for the second most.
Tion Evans against Mizzou?
No, he was 15 in that game.
For Hooker, 397 yards.
Wow. Hendon Hooker in 23 had 23 carries against Ole Miss in 21. Him and Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright had 23 against Akron in 22. Those are the second most carries any Tennessee players had in the game, and then they're sprinkled through with a couple of 22 and 21s.
Wow. Final thing here, and we'll get out of here. Vols Hoops. We got Ethan here, the Vols Hoops expert, with us here tonight. Ryan Schumpert. As we continue our expectations series here in the off season, we'll save baseball for when Jack gets back. So Cam Carr, expectations this season. Ethan, what's excited about him? Your biggest concern you have about Cam Carr going into this year, and one thing you'd like to see him get better at next season for the Vols.
Be honest with you, I don't really have a concern, just because I haven't seen the guy in practice. I mean, my concern would be, I guess, the same thing that I want him to improve upon. He is absolutely not afraid of shooting threes. That much we've learned. I'd like them to go in a little more. He was shooting 27% last year. I think he'll take the jump just because he's proven how not scared he is of shooting it, and how much Barnes has kind of still given him the green light to shoot it, and regardless. And he hit huge ones in huge moments last year, so he has the capability to do it. But yeah, I'd say have you hit a few more of those threes. Find. I mean, I'm not asking you to be, Dalton Connect in the mid-range, but find some sort of something that isn't at the basket or from beyond the 3-point arc to help out one year. He's probably going to be the number 2 guy behind him. That'd be my answer. I'm not really sure about something that worries me about him, except for just doing the inverse of what I just said, which is, still being a 27% 3-point shooter and an offense where I think he's going to be required to make the shots that he's so eager to be taking.
Got to tell you, I'm okay with numbers. I'm okay with science, Ryan Schumpert. There's something to be said about Cam Carr shooting 27% on threes last year, where I'm not saying that they're wrong in that number, but I'm also saying that they're wrong because my eyes told me he shot 40% on threes last season because I saw every other three that he tossed up went in, and I'll give you 40%. But in terms of his 3-point percentage on shots that Chase saw live, somewhere closer to 40%. That the 27% is not real, Ryan. It's not real. He's not a 27% 3-point shooter. I don't believe it. That man from the corner, I'm going to do the Steph Curry from my living room. I'm going to turn around when Cam Carr lights it up from the corner. I already know it's going in, Ryan Schumpert.
I'll give you some numbers real quick before Ryan answers that. February 10th on, which is when he actually kind of started playing, he was 50%, 3 of 6. So
there you go.
Maybe it might just be numbers can do this. They lied to you. He missed a whole bunch against the Gimmies in early when he was.
Don't count. If it didn't happen in 2024, we leave it in 2023. Don't count.
Don't always just read stats, my friends. I guess that's the lesson.
50% Cam.
My point still stands. I want to see him going. If you're going to shoot him at that high of a clip, don't go down.
Cam Carr, nothing but green lights.
Yeah,
Cam Carr, nothing but green lights. And his confidence is impressive. I mean, you're talking about a guy that came in and hit a big corner three in a big moment in a Sweet 16 game when Creighton had a lot of momentum late in the first half. And consistency, which is, going to be sound like a cop-out answer because consistency is the key in college basketball. I just think Cam Carr is so talented offensively that I just don't think right now there's enough consistency from him. I think he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be maddening at times because I think he's going to be a guy that comes off the bench in some games is a spark and scores 18, 20 points for Tennessee, and there's going to be other nights that he's just going to completely disappear. Where I'd say I'd want to see him get better is defensively. There's no reason this guy can't be an elite wing defender with his athleticism and his wingspan. I think he can be absolutely dominant. Obviously not quite the same, kind of Julian Phillips impact. What Julian Phillips did defensively, there's no reason Cam Carr can't do that. I don't think he's there right now, but that's the area where I want to see him improve because that's what will get him 20 minutes plus playing time a night is if he can do that. And then you have more room to figure out offensively. And the consistency can, it's a little bit more manageable if you can. It's not like, he's going to come in. Let's see if he can get into a rhythm offensively. If he's not, well, it's not like he can help us a ton tonight. Then you can kind of play through some mistakes and get into a little bit more of a rhythm throughout the game.
I think he's the ultimate wild card. You could tell me Cam Carr breaks out as a star this year for Tennessee, and you just can't keep him out of the starting lineup because he's just too good and matters too much offensively. You could also tell me that Meshack and Lanier and Gainey and Dubar keep him off the floor, where it's just his minutes are kind of limited. I don't know. Cam Carr is the ultimate wild card to me, where if you get something great, but it's a great spot for Tennessee to be in, where they don't need Cam Carr to break out into a star role. But man, that would be nice because if Cam Carr really makes the leap this year, it's a good problem to have because you have this high octane shooter who is compared to Antonio Reeves and Chaz Lanier. Sakai's back for his final run. You have so many transfers that you're relying on. If you can have an in-house guy, Ethan, that makes the leap, I think that just makes Tennessee a more complete team. I think it helps Tennessee a lot more if Cam Carr ends up not only carving out a role in a rotation, because I think he's going to be in the rotation. It's just he makes a leap where you're like, this is just another offensive weapon that can do a lot, create his own shot, that just makes Tennessee that much more dangerous come March.
Do you remember that year that Yves Pons was an absolute liability on offense, and then he shot a three one of the first games, and we're just like he can do that. That's the kind of reaction I want to have with Cam Carr.
You were here on the pod, Ethan, where we talk about where it needs to be a thing. Jonas Adu, his first game, obviously in Thompson Bowling, he's gonna pull up from 30 feet. He's gonna hit a 40-footer or something. And you're just like Drew Pember, obviously going to Asheville. It just needs to be a running bit where all the Vols bigs, when they move on, they just immediately start showing. Actually, I'm Steph Curry with the shot, and I think it's a great bit.
I think it needs to become a bit where Chase Thomas mentions Drew Pember every single podcast because I think he's hit about 4 in a row where he's mentioned.
He can do it.
I would respect the heck out of that bit.
Do you know how much I miss Drew Pember's UNC Asheville games? Do you know, like, the dude was lighting it up. They're doing 5-out basketball, and he's just out here jacking up threes, and it's just great. Like, it was just, I like the 5-out basketball is really more than anything. So it's a nice, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Barnes style and everything, but I do enjoy some high-octane three-point shooting, space the floor, and UNC Asheville is just a fun team. And this is a bit, but also true. Like, hey,
it was fun to watch.
Like, I just want Tennessee bigs who get bogged down by the rotation to transfer to UNC Asheville every year, so that we get at least one former Tennessee player to light it up for the Bulldogs. So when I go to Asheville with my wife multiple times a year for our getaways, I can just pop in and be like, all right, which former Vol is about to drop 50 here? In what conference are they in?
The Big South, I think.
Big South?
Yeah,
okay.
I think you're right. Yeah. It's Big South.
So it's not just a Pember thing. I just want that to be the rotation. I just like Tobey would have been amazing. Tobey ended up at UNC Asheville, and Tobey just unleashes some high quality shooting. That would be the all time surprise.
Tobey becomes a
Tobey rebounding in the Big South.
Yes.
He'd break records.
Oh man. Maybe, hey, who knows? Maybe he can still wind up there when it's all said and done. I'll hold out hope. Tobey Awaka.
It'll be. I mean, this is actually an interesting question. I don't want to get into it too long, but I was gonna joke that it'll be Cade Phillips, but like,
yeah,
what does he do this year? Like, I'm interested in Cade Phillips. What is he going to be, if anything?
Well, that's we'll get into that. Well, I'll add Cade Phillips on next week. We'll add Cade.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think they were teammates, weren't they? Weren't Cam and Cade teammates in high school?
Yep. At Link Academy in Missouri.
Yeah.
So there you go. We'll see. Cade's another one in-house, but I don't know. Cade just strikes me as someone that I think Cade's going to carve out a rotation spot as time goes on.
Yep.
I feel like he's
agree.
Ryan Schumpert, Ethan Stone. Thank you guys as always. Go check out Rocky Top Insider Saturday Down South if you have not already done so, and keep up with Ethan and Ryan's great work there. And I will talk to y'all both next week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.